Hey all, welcome back to the channel. Of course it's Monday, that means it's countdown day, and today we prepare for extermination when we count down, as voted on by fans, the top 10 versions of the one and only Devastator. That's going to be our focus this time around in the latest GotBot Counts Down. Hey all, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, your most humble of hosts, Dennis Moulton, aka GotBot. As always, man, please like, comment, share, of course, subscribe, and while you're at it, loud my baby. And hit that notification bell, please. It helps me out a ton. It lets you know when content of all sorts goes up here on the channel. Check out Machinery of Man, The Everything Factor, all the groups that I'm either a mod or an admin for, as well as all of my social media links. All of that in the description down below. Also in the description down below. And if you're in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link. You can check us out on Patreon. You can see what we have to offer to you through spring. Or, of course, you can always hit the join button right here on YouTube and become a channel member. And this is, as voted on by fans all across social media, the top 10 versions of Devastator. And it's a little bit interesting, especially number 10, and you'll see why when we get there. Of course, before doing any of that, we're going to do the honorable mentions first. These ones all had votes. In fact, these ones all had the same number of votes, and they did not rank. Came close, though. We have in our honorable mentions DX9's Hulky, which was really kind of a first go at sort of a legend scale Devastator, and it was pretty good for the time. A little bit limited in the articulation. I have a KO version of it, but not bad. Also, Green Giant, Make Toys Green Giant, which a lot of people to this day still say, yeah, Green Giant is still my go-to Devastator, and I get it. I totally understand it. I always felt like Green Giant had a little bit too much green for me. I wish that there was a little more purple on that guy. Get this, Revenge of the Fallen Supreme class, I think it was. The one where the Constructicons from the film combined to form Devastator, but they could only go between vehicle and, like, I guess combined mode. There was no robot mode. It came as like a box set. And the last one would be the Micromaster 6 Builder repaint. So 6 Builder was a bunch of Micromaster construction vehicles, and really Decepticon 6 Builder is kind of known as like a Micromaster Devastator, if you will, right? In fact, sometimes he's even been named Devastator instead of Decepticon 6 Builder. I think in Japan he was known as Decepticon 6 Builder, and I think in North America it was Devastator, except in Micromaster form, if I'm not mistaken. So all of those made the honorable mentions. None of them made the actual list. So, who did? You know what we're going to do. We're going to do what we always do and kick things off with number 10, Burst. Now, coming in at number 10 is a very unexpected one, but the people who voted for this offering said, I'm going to vote for this offering as a joke. In fact, all but I believe 2 people that voted for this one said, I'm going to vote for this one for a joke. And it lets you know that when people vote as a joke, sometimes it can have effects, because number 10 officially is this guy. That's right, Action Master Devastator. Voted in, made the list because, not because I think people think he's one of the top 10 best, but voted in because people voted for a joke. That being said, I always sort of liked that Devastator. The only gripe I had with it, because I wasn't someone who detested Action Masters. I kind of liked Action Masters. Guilty pleasure. But I didn't like that they were all the same size. Like, Devastator shouldn't be the same size as Bumblebee, right? They should have had different scales, and Devastator should have been bigger. The fact that they didn't transform, yeah, I get it. A lot of people will say it's not a transformer if it doesn't transform, blah, blah, blah. I get that there was the whole story that they lost their ability to transform because of Optimus looking for whatever it was, some energy or whatever. I don't need the whole backstory. Nevertheless, there was something about this Devastator that helped to sort of capture the animation accuracy element of it. And considering at the time that the Action Master Devastator came out, the only other one we had was the G1 that arguably couldn't move, was a brick, and didn't really hold together that well. There are people who legitimately liked this one because obviously it wasn't going to come apart, and because it had infinitely more articulation than the original G1. So I understand why it would be number 10. That being said, because that's a joke, number 10 could also be this guy. Yeah, buddy, the Magic Square Legends class offering of Devastator. Very strong, very animation accurate, very good. Certainly some parts forming here, and that's what makes it work. So if you don't like parts forming, then you're not going to like it. But as it is and as it functions, it's a fairly successful Legends class offering. How can you argue with it? So whether you are somebody who voted as a joke and just happy to see Action Masters get a little love, or whether you are, say, a Legends collector that really enjoy the offerings from Magic Square for their Devastator, any way you cut it, one of those two falls in at the number 10 slot. Coming in at number 9 sort of sticks with the Legends class offerings, or certainly Legends scaled offerings, with another third-party entry, and it's this guy. That's right, New Age's Hephaestus. I don't know what his name is for sure or how to pronounce it, but it's obviously another Legends Devastator. This one, we have very clever, very nice looking Constructicons in all of their modes, and the combined mode has a significant amount of parts forming. It's what makes it work. But that being said, it also works quite well. We have sort of entered an era, and I would say it started really with probably Zeta's Superion, maybe their Bruticus, where parts forming got incorporated to help the stability of a lot of combiners. And there are people that are all for it and say, hey, if it makes the combined mode more stable, cool. And there are people who are against it and saying, well, it's a cheat. I don't know how you personally feel, but I can say this. New Age usually do very good jobs with their designs and their offerings, and if they felt that they needed to do parts forming to make a Legends Devastator really succeed, who am I to argue? Enough fans felt like it succeeded that it was able to take the number 9 slot. Ah, yes, and here at number 8, we dive into third party once again with this guy. One of the earliest versions of, really, I'll say, what I think most would probably consider like a chug scale Devastator, that being TFC's Hercules. Great articulation, really good Constructicons. Granted, the green is a very deep green, and some people might say, it should be a bit of a lighter green. And granted, the purple looks beautiful, but the one thing that always kind of struck me out about this guy was the purple thighs. Never landed with me. I would want the thighs green. However, when you especially think of what was being offered at the time for a Devastator, for a combined Devastator, you got to say that TFC really sort of nailed it out of the ballpark as best as I think anybody could have with design of the time. In fact, they did it so well that to this day, now in 2022, when this is being recorded, there are a lot of people that still think Hercules is a very strong contender for Devastator. See what I did there? Enough fans felt that way that he was able to take the number 8 slot. Number 7 takes us to the movies and Revenge of the Fallen with this guy. That's right, the Studio Series Devastator. And a lot of people will say, look, this is an affordable Devastator for a movie version. Those who are movie fans often said, look, we've sort of been waiting for a proper, like, supreme Titan class offering of our Devastator, so to speak, for a long time. I mean, the Combiner Wars one, that's fine for, like, say, G1 fans or whatever. But for movie fans, you had that Supreme class one that, you know, was just vehicles and combine mode, or you just had the Constructicons that couldn't combine. These guys can do it all. Granted, there's some add-on kits that sort of help the cause a little bit. And if you work it, he can get on all fours, but it's a little difficult. The Studio Series 1 is not perfect. Voters said the Studio Series 1 is not perfect, but they did say that it's imposing, it has presence, and you know what? It is a proper movie-verse version of Devastator. Whether you agree or disagree is sort of beyond the point, besides the point, because enough fans felt that way that he was able to take the number 7 slot. Number 6 is a little bit of an oddity, and it's this guy. Generation Toys Gravity Builder. Look, as Constructicon vehicles and robots, tremendous. I mean a tremendous offering. Combined, the intention I think when it was first released, was that this is going to be a masterpiece scaled version. But a lot of people said, oh, I don't know about that. He seems too small to be masterpiece scaled. And then some people said, well, maybe he could fit in with your like chug display. And then some people said, I don't know about that. He seems a little bit too big for a chug display. He's sort of in no man's land for a lot of collectors, but they still gravitate to him because he's done so well. So many genius things included in the engineering and the transformation that just plain work to give a nice looking and solidly built version of Devastator. The only kind of criticism I've ever had for the Generation Toy version is I always felt like the purple wasn't quite a Devastator purple. But that is a minor gripe for what is otherwise still renowned right now, today, as a tremendous combiner and a tremendous Devastator. Enough fans feel that way that he was able to take the number 6 slot. And here we are at the most coveted of locations. Say it with me now, the halfway mark. And at the halfway mark, we go to the seedy underbelly that is KO and this guy. That's right, the Jin Bao, oversized version of Gravity Builder. And everything that I said for number 6 applies here, except that the Jin Bao is noted as having generally better paint applications, if you can believe that. And I think that's arguable whether he has better paint applications, but people do feel that way. And there are a lot of people who said, look, he's just plain better scaled, if you're an MP collector. I get that. I totally get that. So everything that was good about the original seems to be improved here with the size and the paint deco. In terms of stability, I've had a very weird kind of thing happen with the Jin Bao one, in that some people say he's solid as attack, like he is solid, and others saying, he's not that solid. I don't know, because I've never handled the Jin Bao, but I know that every review that I've seen, every reviewer I know, everything I've ever heard says that it is tremendous. It is everything that was good about Gravity Builder originally, and then some. And that's why Jin Bao's oversized version of Gravity Builder took the number 5 slot. Number 4 takes us to Japan, takes us to Takara and this version. That's right, the Unite Warriors Devastator. It is, in many people's mind, the go-to, the best official G1-inspired version of Devastator that we have ever gotten. The Constructicon vehicles are generally accurate, with the exception of Mixmaster. The Takara iteration of the Constructicons have some changes to them that allow them to be better engineered. For example, the elbows. The guys all have way better elbows than, say, the Combiner Wars version. The deco. A lot of people prefer the deco, and it's minor changes. A little bit more purple here, a little bit more green there, but especially the deco on the face, where the face is darker than the forehead, and the visor can go up and down if you want 2 separate eyes for Devastator, or the visor look. It is Devastator with the bells and whistles that maybe he should have had all along. Unite Warriors Devastator, to this day, still stands for many, myself included, as a go-to, about as perfect iteration as we're going to get in terms of an updated G1 version to go with the main line. Unite Warriors Devastator took the number 4 slot. Coming in at number 3, we have the go-to for MP collectors, the gold standard, if you will, with this guy. That's right, it is the Toy World version of Devastator. And, like, it's big, it's gigantic, honestly. But it tends to scale well with some other offerings, or so I've heard, from Zeta, for example. And it makes sense, Toy World Zeta, right? It looks tremendous. Now, the original release of it very much seemed to have a Studio Ox-inspired look to it, and even the subsequent repaints when the thighs were changed from silver to green, still stylistically had a bit of a Studio Ox version. If you hear coughing, that's Starscream wife. She can't really help it, I assume.
Guys, I got the phlegm.
She got the phlegm. Usually she kind of interrupts when we're doing the live show, but not on the countdowns. And while I could edit it out, we'll just leave it in here for giggles. But back to the Toy World Devastator. Like, I've seen it. It's not for me because it's too big for me, and I'm not an MP collector. But if you're an MP collector, come on. You kind of owe it to yourself to have the Toy World version because of the sheer size and because of the fact, yeah, it matches. I think some people would prefer if it was wholly G1 inspired rather than kind of G1 Studio Ox inspired. That's really a minor gripe, and that's really a personal choice. As far as the Devastator goes, it's noted as being tremendous with decent articulation, though some people have said that the stability is iffy depending on the version you get. Naturally, there were kind of various releases of this guy, so the mold has definitely been used a few times, and maybe there has been some mold degradation. I don't know. Here's what I do know. Regardless of his imperfections, he certainly looks imposing and impressing enough that collectors got on that bandwagon and gave him enough votes to cinch the number 3 slot. And here we are now at number 2, and number 2 is interesting. Number 2 is this guy. That's right, number 2 is G1 Devastator. And I think he got the votes he got because he was the first. Not just the first Devastator, but he was the first combiner, right? He was the first time in Transformers that we had a number of bots combined. Now, to be fair, was he actually good? I think that's iffy. I mean, he couldn't move, he was a brick. He had a ton of parts forming, and a lot of kids at the time when he was initially released had difficulty getting everything in the right configuration and putting all the bits and pieces on, and had difficulty making sure things didn't break, specifically hook. Case in point, yours truly broke his hook. That was the only Constructicon I ever had. I did know someone who had the Devastator. I was shocked with the amount of parts. Even as a kid, I was shocked with the amount of parts forming that had to be done. And I thought he was going to be able to do more than he could do. He was pretty darn static. I don't know. I guess it's that nostalgia factor. It's the fact it was the first. I get it. You voted for him because of the reverence that the original G1 deserves. Hard to argue with it. When it was the first, at the time it would have kind of had to be the best. Though some might say GotBot's answer to Devastator being Puzzler was more successful than Devastator. Who knows? That's a matter of conjecture, and that's a discussion for another day. Anyway you cut it, enough fans feel that the G1 is beloved that he was able to take the number 2 slot. That being said, before I move on, I will note here, when we looked at RC's last week, I also did a top 5 for her in fiction. This time around, I'm going to stick it in right here, a top 2 for fiction. Number 2 would be the Movieverse Devastator. And then number 1 would be G1 Devastator, specifically the 86 movie Devastator. They were the only fiction versions that got votes, so I didn't really feel that they needed to have their own list. Because in terms of fiction, the only ones who got any votes was the Revenge of the Fallen movie version, and then by far the G1 version, specifically if you want to give it a pocket, the G1 movie version, because he was noted as being a serious, dangerous threat when he went in and basically tore Autobot City apart, right? So I absolutely, totally get that. I guess a very mini fiction countdown there. Anyway, I digress. Number 2 is sort of all over the map, but it was tied up by G1 Devastator himself, and that only leaves 1. And at number 1, across the fiction, across all the plastic offerings, from G1 to Energon to the movies to third party, this version by far took the top votes, and it's this guy. That's right. Unexpectedly to me, I really thought Toy World was going to take it. Combiner Wars Devastator. And anybody who's sitting there thinking, what? That's not that great. I'm going to explain to you why the votes came for Combiner Wars Devastator. Whether or not it necessarily makes him the best, I think is a bit of conjecture. But the first reason people voted for him is because they said he was obtainable. You were able to get him. even getting the Unite Warriors was harder and much more expensive than the Combiner Wars. So the Combiner Wars was obtainable at regular retail. It was affordable for pretty much most budgets. Not any budget, but most budgets. It was even re-released in, I think, 2019 on Amazon, if I'm not mistaken. So it was one that actually was released and had a second run because people had missed out on it and wanted it. As a Devastator, granted, it would have been nice if the shoulders had had some ratchets. Otherwise, he's pretty darn stable. It would be nice if the head had a little more mobility. There are things that certainly could have been done to improve it, but when you look at him, he is quintessentially Devastator. A lot of people that voted for him also said the Combiner Wars. However, with the perfect effect set that gives new elbows and accessories to the individual Constructicons, and with the perfect effect set that had like the Prowlestator head and whatnot, and the Dr. Wu crane arm replacement. So a lot of people that voted also said Combiner Wars Devastator with the appropriate add-on kits added. So we have so far obtainable, affordable, with the sets, and he ties in with a chug collection. That's what people said. Plus, a couple of people said, I'm going to vote Combiner Wars because it's the official, even though the one I have is the KO that's downsized. But I'm not going to give it to that because there's some weaknesses there and a couple of pegs that broke. I assume that the Titan Class 1 is a little more solid in that department. Whether it is or isn't, I don't know. Combiner Wars Devastator had a lot of complicated votes, but he had a lot of votes. Enough that by far, by a good, if I'm looking here, 30 votes, he clearly took the number 1 slot. And there you go, man. We've gone from 10 down to 1 once again. I don't know if you agree with it. I don't necessarily agree with the way all the voting went. I really thought the Toy World's Constructor was going to take number 1. I thought Combiner Wars would be on here. I thought the Unite Warriors was going to be higher. I think that a lot of the voting that went into this was a mix of nostalgia, was a mix of people wanting a laugh, like with the Action Master, and I think was a mix of convenience and availability and affordability, and I think that's why the Combiner Wars 1 took it. And I'll even say this, at the time he came out, I got him on sale for 109 Canadian for the entire box set. I mean, it was hard to argue with that, man. It was really hard to argue with that. I mean, you were getting 6 Voyagers and a combined mode for $100. I mean, you know, and that was Canadian at the time. I think the subsequent release was more expensive, but I couldn't argue with it. Yeah, and he looks it. Like, to this day, when I look at that Devastator, I'm like, it's quintessentially Devastator. It is top to bottom quintessentially Devastator. So I get it. What are some other ones that got some votes that didn't appear on anything? Energon got some votes. Going down here, the USKO Devastator. I don't know the USKO Devastator, but that got a couple of votes. Revenge of the Fallen Legends class Devastator. The CBB, a lot of people call it Kubion Bao, but it's actually Cool Become Brave. The CBB downsized KO version of the Combiner Wars Devastator. Steam Hammer, the KO oversized multicolored version of Gravity Builder that it's a bit bigger than, say, the core bot, I'll call it, for the Evolution Rodimus Prime. Like, you know, the Hot Rod core of Evolution Rodimus Prime? It's a bit bigger than that. So I guess the Voyager-ish, Leader-ish class. What else? NBK had some votes. The Easy Collection Devastator, which I think was a green version of the movie Devastator, of the Legends movie Devastator. Mastermaid. Jin Jiang Devastator. I don't know the Jin Jiang one. And just for one more to throw in here, our buddy Justin from the 3D Corner has been, I can't wait to actually review this at some point. I hope he lets me review this at some point. He is doing a completely 3D printed version of Devastator. It's all of the Constructicons, their alt modes, and apparently they do combine. It's wild. He only has, I think, 4 yet, so he has a couple more to go, but it is a wild looking Devastator. Great looking Constructicons. Really great looking Constructicons. So there you go, 10 down to 1 and a whole bunch more. I think that a lot of the ones that appear on the list could be moved around in different slots. Let me know if your favorite made it, where your favorite made it, or if your favorite didn't make it at all. I appreciate you guys coming by, giving me some of your extremely valuable time. I do know how important it is to you. If you're in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link. You can check us out on Patreon. You can see what we have to offer to you through spring, or of course you can hit the join button right here on YouTube and become a channel member. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, stick around, have some fun with us, and especially don't forget that somehow, some way, each and every day, you right there, you do make a difference in the world. And I look forward to the next time that you and I get together to have another visit, either in the live streams on Thursday nights at the stop motion premieres, or the old-fashioned way right here inside the videos.